Do I need to do anything, spell any names? Say
Yeah,
names?
your first name, how to spell it.
Yeah, my first name is Clay, C-L-A-Y. My last name is Jones, J-O-N-E-S. And I'm representing the Blount County Fire and EMS Association.
So can you just tell us a little bit about what's happening come December 31st and just everything that's going into that?
Right, so let me start with giving, I'll give a brief history of how we got into this situation. First and foremost, I want to make it abundantly clear that there's no bad relationship between the Fire and EMS Association and the County Commission. I think they all do an exceptional job with the things that they have in order to do them. I think that like a lot of other entities and counties around us, especially in Alabama, that the resources just aren't there and available for them to do everything that the citizens ask for them to do. I can speak directly for the territory that my department covers. Just in the last 10 years, we've seen an influx, a huge influx of people moving in from outer areas expecting lower taxes, but also at the same time, the same services they would have received in a larger municipality. So again, like I said, there's a great relationship between the Fire and EMS Association, the fire departments, the county commission, and the other county entities. So what we're faced with right now is, for the past probably 15 years, I think it's actually 13 years, Blount County, the 911 center, has been issuing an ambulance contract. It initially started as a revenue stream. Issuing the contract was a revenue stream for 911. That way 911 could continue operating the way they were operating, but also making the necessary improvements. In addition to the revenue stream, the reason behind the ambulance contract was to ensure that there was some sort of, not necessarily an authority, but more so standards that the county could hold an ambulance service to, because the ambulance services are private ambulance services and operated by private entities. So by establishing the Ambulance Advisory Commission, who oversaw the 911 contract and making sure that those standards were being met, that's kind of how we got to the continuance of the request for proposal and the ambulance contract. So initially there was a private ambulance company that was issued the first contract, and then as it worked through that contract period, there was another contract issued, or it was sent back out for proposal at the end of that contract. Once that happened, Lifeguard Ambulance came into Blount County, and throughout the past several years, Lifeguard has been operating in Blount County with 5 ambulances during the day and 4 ambulances at night. It's a effective level of service, but it's not exactly where we need to be. So Blount County is a geographical oddity to hospitals because the time for transports. So you pair the time for transports along with our call volume, we run out of ambulances weekly and almost daily most of the time. I can say that within the past probably 6 months, 2 times, patients have been transported in the beds of pickup trucks because there wasn't an ambulance available. And to me, as the chairman of the Fire and EMS Association, I see that as a regression. So earlier this year, the Ambulance Advisory Committee approached the Lifeguard Ambulance Service, who is ran by GMR, Global Medical Response, and requested them to extend the current contract. They said, or their response was, they didn't want to extend the current contract as it was written, and they wished for the contract to be rebid or sent out. That way they would have a chance to bid on it with their provisions. So we got to the point of the ambulance contract being issued out. It was issued out across the state. It was sent to the Alabama Association of Ambulances, and I think it kind of made its way to every ambulance provider. We had ambulance providers, even from out of state, that were inquiring on the ambulance contract. In the pre-bid meeting for the ambulance contract, there were 6 companies that showed up. And of those 6 companies on bid opening day, 4 submitted proposals. Of those 4, all 4 requested some sort of subsidy. And then one of them did not request a subsidy, but was a significant degradation of service. Meaning that the same level of ambulances that we have now, we wouldn't have with the 0 subsidy option. The 911 board, and I don't want to speak for them, but they motioned in the meeting yesterday to reject all bids. because they didn't have the means to subsidize a private ambulance company, nor did they want to accept a degradation of service on behalf of the county. They deferred that responsibility or requested to defer that responsibility to the county commission and or the Blount County Healthcare Authority. So we're kind of at an impasse now to where the 911 board doesn't have the ability to subsidize, even though they had the authority or were assuming the authority to issue this ambulance contract. So I've spoken with the Alabama State 911 board today, as a matter of fact, and just kind of asked them to substantiate or refute any of the questions that I had as far as who is responsible for this ambulance contract. Now, in state statutes and state codes, Title 11, I believe it was 87, Chapter 87, there's no obligation for 911 centers to issue an ambulance contract, but it does leave an allowance for them to do so if nobody else is doing it. But it kind of put the 911 board and the 911 center in a very precarious position because, yes, they're issuing this contract, but no, they can't provide any type of subsidy. So I'm going to kind of rewind here a little bit how we got to the point of asking the county commission to reinstate this healthcare authority tax. Several years ago, there was a 4-meal property tax imposed by the county commission that was generally for building the hospital in Aniana. As it read, when they instated this tax, that as the building project of the hospital met certain benchmarks, that parts of this tax would fall off. So it went from 4 meals and now we're seeing it 2 meals. At any point in time, the county commission has the authority to reinstate that additional 2 meals so they can subsidize or provide funding for the healthcare authority. Now, I want to be very clear when I say this, that as the Fire and EMS Association, we don't know what those subsidy requests were. What we do know is the fire departments themselves can't afford it. The 911 center has explicitly stated they can't afford it. So that leaves the option to us that the healthcare authority tax could be our way to maintain the current level of service that we have. In saying that, I don't know what the actual bids were in my position as the chairman of the Fire and EMS Association. From what I've heard, that most of the people did not agree with that number. They thought it was a little high. But the 911 board or the Ambulance Advisory Committee, not having any funding to subsidize, was not in a position to negotiate what the subsidy would be with those companies. So where we're at now is the ambulance contract was supposed to end in October. Lifeguard was gracious enough to offer an extension of December 31st, 2025. The initial request for extension was 6 months. Lifeguard assured us that they weren't going to leave us high and dry, but they did say they wanted to see a good faith effort from the county entities and making sure that we were working through and making sure that there was a contract in place or a way or mechanism of funding for these subsidies. So as the Fire and EMS Association, as the chairman of the Fire and EMS Association, I represent 22 fire departments, and of those 22, 19 of them are volunteer. Those 19 fire departments, probably 90% of them operate on a budget of less than $20,000 a year. So, and it's not any fault of anybody's that it's that way. It's just a systemic issue nationwide that fire departments are underfunded. Even in the largest municipalities, fire departments are underfunded. EMS agencies are underfunded. But it kind of hits further home when it's happening to the smaller fire departments where people actually live. We're kind of in a weird area here in Blount County where most people live in Blount County and travel outside of Blount County to work. There's not necessarily a tax base here to support some sort of public safety tax to where it's solely public safety. But we've got, as the county, we've got to start working towards sustainable EMS coverage, whether it be a county-based EMS service or the fire department is banding together and creating some sort of countywide fire district where there's guaranteed funding. to where the county fire departments can start their own or buy their own ambulances and staff the ambulances. But what we do know is right now we can't keep going like we're going. And we certainly can't go backwards and accept a degradation of service. And I mean, there's 3 and 5 year plans to where we want to see this thing go, but the unfortunate reality is we're faced with pretty much a 90-day deadline. I trust that Lifeguard isn't just going to leave us, out to dry and leave the citizens that way, but they're a private business and they can't continue losing money. A lifeguard employee has publicly stated that they only collect about 34 cents on the dollar of what they bill out. And that's just not in Blount County. Again, that's another one of those systemic issues that's statewide. The collection rates for ambulances in Alabama are some of the worst in the nation. The ambulance companies, the private ambulance companies, have been fortunate that we have not guaranteed payers, but there are provisions in place like the payer of last resort that the ambulance companies get when they transfer out of a hospital or they transfer out of a nursing home. Unfortunately for us, currently, the hospital's ambulance contract is our ambulance contract. So our emergency service ambulances are being used to do transfers out of UAB Blount. And until we can get a contract in place that will also support those transfers, we're just going to be in the same position over and over again. The Ambulance Advisory Commission is working hand in hand with employees at UAB St. Vincent's and Aniana, but it's nothing that can take place within 90 days. I also want to just also be clear that I don't want anybody to think that this is a knee-jerk reaction or somebody's holding us ransom saying pay us this money. But the unfortunate reality is somebody told us that there's probably going to be a subsidy, so we pushed it out for a proposal, and all 4 companies that bid said that there's going to be a subsidy. So as the chairman of the Fire and EMS Association, I want to make that clear that we don't have a way to ensure that Blount County is going to continue some sort of ambulance service, and we rely on our county commission a lot. And the county commission obliges those requests all the time. They pay for our fuel. We get some tip fees off of a tire landfill. And the healthcare authority gives us money every year to buy EMS supplies. But if it wasn't for those provisions from the county and those authorities, that a lot of these departments, they wouldn't last. And outside of even of the funding, another issue is the personnel. I mean, a lot of the fire departments struggle with having people to even answer the call. A lot of departments are also fortunate that they've got some just very dedicated retired men and women that run the calls for them during the day, but a lot of those responsibilities fall on the mutual aid departments around them. So I'm probably just going to continue rambling if I don't stop. So if y'all want to ask me any questions or have any questions moving forward.
I mean, like you're saying, 90 days is not a whole lot of time before this contract expires initially. If, like, let's say they don't go through with reinstating this property tax, what would be the next step, or what would be another ask? So,
and that's kind of the position we're in. We don't know what the next ask is. This whole process has been going on since early this year, probably March or April. We knew that this contract was ending. We needed to start, working our way towards a proposal if we didn't get an extension. And so it's not anything that we learned yesterday. It's not anything we learned last week. We knew this was coming. We've been knowing it's been coming for quite some time. But until those bids came back from the proposal, we didn't know what that number was going to be for that subsidy, and we still don't know how it's going to be paid for. I'm sure there are several different options that the commissioners can come up with on their own brainstorming, and they make more with less all the time. But knowing that that's an option there to get us by, and maybe if we can establish, get this tax reinstated to get us through the next 90 days and through the next year while we're establishing our own county district or county EMS service or however it may take. But I do think that there needs to be some sort of mechanism in place where the county not the association, but the ambulance authority, or ambulance advisory commission, and the healthcare authority can start negotiating these subsidies to ensure that we maintain the same level of service.
For sure. Can you just talk a little bit about, obviously, the importance of having this continue and having something else in place, and I guess your message to the community who read your press release today?
I love social media for many different reasons, but I also hate it for many different reasons. And it's hard to convey a message without it sounding like the fire departments are fear-mongering. But it's great for getting a message out there. I think the media release, or the release from the Fire and EMS Association, went out like 9:30 last night, and I think it's been shared somewhere around like 300 something times, and I don't know how many comments. And the message I want to get across is we're not fear-mongering. Like, this is a real reality. It's a harsh reality that we must face, and we can't stand by and not say anything and not do anything. If anything, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the citizens of Blount County are informed about what's going on and trying to be transparent about what's going on with the goings-ons in the county as far as this ambulance contract goes, because in the future, if they do have to wait 45 minutes to an hour for an ambulance, or if in the future a firefighter has to look down at a patient and say, "I'm sorry, there's not an ambulance coming, get in my pickup truck, I'm going to drive you to the hospital." It's a harsh reality. I think it's a systemic problem that we don't just face here in Blount County. I think it's a nationwide problem. I think it's just our time to deal with it. I don't think anybody is asking for this tax to make any money. I know nobody in this county stands to make any money off of an ambulance service being subsidized. Those subsidies are being requested from third-party agencies that run these ambulance services. So my message is, like, this is a very real and harsh reality that we're about to be faced with if we can't get something in place. I don't want to assume that lifeguard isn't going to leave us hanging high and dry. I want the citizens of the county to have that comfort when they go home at night of knowing that, hey, if I need an ambulance, one's going to come. I think everybody would like that comfort.
Chief, I just have a few clarifying questions to make sure I understand this. So the current EMS staff for the county, who are they employees of?
The current EMS staff is, as far as the private ambulance goes, they're employees of Lifeguard Ambulance Service, which is an extension of Global Medical Response, or GMR. Now, the fire departments, whether they're volunteer or career, they respond with firefighters and EMTs or first responders, or even higher levels of care like paramedics. I think only 3 of the departments, or 4 of the departments in the county are ALS, so meaning advanced life support, so they have those abilities to provide some sort of care if an ambulance is going to have an extended ETA. But it's not a luxury that every fire department has. And it's not because they can't do it or they won't do it. It's more so that they don't have the ability to do it because they don't have a paramedic. And those paramedics are hard to come by. I mean, I'm sure y'all all ran news stories recently on staffing levels for ambulances anyway. So in my own opinion, and I think I share the opinion with the entire Fire and EMS Association, that transport to definitive hospital care should be a basic human right. And unfortunately, somebody's got to pay for it. And whether the fire departments pay for it or it's done through some sort of healthcare authority tax, ultimately the citizen is having to pay for it, because the fire department's money's got to come from somewhere, and the county's money comes from somewhere. It's just, we've got to find a way for the Fire and EMS Association, the Ambulance Advisory Committee, the Healthcare Authority, and the County Commission to work together to find some sort of resolution, and pretty quickly.
And so I know you talked about the current services not really being enough for the needs of the county, but I'm just kind of confused. I may have just lost this in translation here, but if the money was already there for a service that may have been inadequate but was there, what kind of happened to coming to right now where that process went up to bid and no one ended up undertaking it, and now it's uncertain? Because I would assume that if one entity has that contract, then, you know, when that is up, either they're gonna give it back to them, or they might get a better deal, you know what I'm saying?
Right, so if I start talking and I'm not answering your question, just stop me. And so, previously, in the previous ambulance contracts, historically, there's never been a subsidy requested. These ambulance services have operated based off of just what they bill to the individual and their insurance companies. I think I stated earlier that a statement from one of the lifeguard employees was in public forum that they only collect about 34 cents to the dollar of what they bill out. So lifeguard has also stated publicly that they have lost significantly transporting within the county, and it's costing them too much to stay here without some sort of subsidy. So I think it kind of ties in to several different things. I think there's several caveats to why an ambulance service may be losing money here. It may be some sort of billing mechanism. I do know that up until October of 2024, lifeguard was not quote unquote in network for the major insurance providers in the area. So those bills are being pushed directly to the individual. And I don't know why that was happening, but I do know that in October of 2024 that they were able to start billing those major insurance providers again. I don't know how much that offset their losses, but from what I understand, those losses are still pretty significant.
So lifeguard is, please jump in, correct me if I'm wrong. So lifeguard is, they're considering leaving because of the not having that subsidy, or is that what, I haven't heard a lot of these words before.
Right.
I've taken a look like this inside what goes on behind the scenes in county and EMS level before. So are they considering leaving because of it not being nowhere near profitable enough? But is the goal to keep them with this money or to attract someone else? I'm trying to find
The goal is to maintain or increase the current level of service based off of what they propose. I want to tread carefully, but because I don't think anybody is, as far as the first responders, have been displeased with the operations of lifeguard. I think that the Ambulance Advisory Commission was pleased enough to request that lifeguard extend the current service contract and to keep operating in the way that they were. And then when lifeguard denied it under the guise of losing money, that's why they did it. So the ultimate goal here, I believe, and I'm only speaking just from the outside looking in, I think the ultimate goal here for the Ambulance Advisory Committee and whatever entity they're going to fall under in the future, the goal here is to provide or increase the level of service that we currently have now. So lifeguard didn't say, hey, we're done, we're pulling out. They just said they didn't wish to continue with the current contract as it was written.
Is there anything else you want to say or add that we may not have gotten to yet?
No, I want to reiterate that the Fire and EMS Association, there's no bad blood between us and the commissioners. We believe they do a great job. It's just our release was just asking for the public's input, and whether the citizen is for it or against it, please let your commissioners know so they can make an informed decision on how to move forward with this.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Chief.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.